YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we're gonna do a showcase for Ancient Gear. Now, we did this in the stream a while ago. It was fun. It was kind of fun. So first of all, the new cards. We'll talk about them quickly. So, Ancient Gear Dark Golem. So if this card is normal or special summon, you can add up to 2 Ancient Gear cards and or Gear Town from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear Dark Golem. Then discard 1 card. This is a pretty good searcher for your majority of your combos, basically, and doing an OTK. With the number of copies, we'll talk about it in YugiOh Omega, so don't worry about it. Then we have next is Ancient Gear Dragon. Cannot be spell summoned, so if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Earth machines, you can normal summon this card without tributing. When your opponent activates a spell or trap card or effect, you can send to the graveyard 1 machine monster from your hand or face up on the field, or 1 Ancient Gear Golem from your deck. Negate the effect. So a really good spell trap card negation. Then we have the new Ancient Gear Commander, which is kind of nice. You can send 1 Ancient Gear Golem from your hand, deck, or face up on the monster zone to your graveyard. Immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Ancient Gear monster. You can banish this card from your graveyard, place 1 Ancient Gear continuous trap card from your hand, face up on the field. Then you have the Ancient Gear Tanker. If this card is normal or spell summon, you can spell summon 1 Ancient Gear monster from your hand, except Ancient Gear Tanker, ignoring its summoning conditions. If your opponent controls a monster, you can spell summon from your graveyard, so another good card as well. You can target one face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, for the rest of the turn, all monsters you control gain 600 attack, so additional attack points to your monsters. Then we have the new OCG exclusive card will be added to the game, Ancient Gear Statue. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can spell summon this card from your hand. You can tribute this card, spell summon 1 Ancient Gear Golem or 1 monster that mentions it from your hand or deck, except Ancient Gear Statue, ignoring its summoning conditions. So a really good starter as well for your OTK. Then next up, we have the Ancient Gear Advance. When this card is activated, add 1 Ancient Gear spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. So it's basically a searcher. Then the second effect is kind of good as well. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 monster, draw 1 card, and apply one of these effects. You can normal summon 1 Ancient Gear Golem or 1 level 5 or higher monster that mentions it without even tributing. And lastly, the new trap card, which is Ancient Gear Duel. Ancient Gear Golem and monsters that mentions it in your monster zone are unaffected by your opponent's activated monster effects. If your opponent controls a monster, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster that mentions Ancient Gear Golem from your extra deck by banishing monsters from your field or graveyard as materials. And if you do, it can make up to 3 attacks during the battle phase. So a really good card just to win you the game with just your fusion monster. So with that, I think that's the new cards that we have here. Let's move to YugiOh Omega just to see the exact number of cards that you'll use for the deck. Okay, so here we are with YugiOh Omega. So with regards to the copies that you'll basically need for the deck or for the core deck list, we have 2 Ancient Gear Golem. You practically need just 2 of this max. This is basically one of your best cards to search out the cards you needed for your OTK or for your combo. 1 copy of Ancient Gear Golem. You just basically need 1 copy of this. It's easy enough to summon to the field from the hand or from the graveyard or basically from your deck by any means necessary for your Ancient Gear monsters or cards. It might be a brick sometimes, but it's basically pretty much useful for the deck. Then we have the Ancient Gear Wyvern, so you can add 1 Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand. So once you get advanced, you get a copy of, where was it? The Ancient Gear Catapult. Use the advance, tribute the Wyvern on the field, and then you can draw 1 card. And then use the Catapult to destroy your advance, and then you can gain Ancient Gear monster on the field, which is pretty nice. So best of 3 copies for this. And then we have the Ancient Gear Tanker. I do advise just going for 1 to 2 copies of this, depending on your build. Going for 2 copies, it's not half bad. But if you're going for an OTK, just go for 1 copy. It's easy enough. Then next up, we have a copy of Ancient Gear Box. I do have some concerns with regards to the number of copies for this. You can run 0 to 1 copy for this. And then next up, we have the Ancient Gear Commander. Now, I've seen some builds, people run 2 copies of this, but having 1 copy of this if you're going second is still basically 1 card that you'll practically need to discard to the graveyard if you already have the trap card present on hand. Then we have the new OCG exclusive card, which is the Ancient Gear Statue. Practically 3 copies. You know how this card can be spell summoned. You can tribute this card, spell summon 1 Ancient Gear monster, and that's basically what you need to know, practically. Then next up, we have the 1 copy of Catapult. People are running 2 copies for this, but I advise just go with 1 to 2 copies depending on your build. Then we have the Advance, max this one out. It's a searcher. It draws 1 card, and it can normal summon one Ancient Gear Golem or 1 level 5 or higher. And then next up, you have the Fortress, another good card. Your opponent cannot target Ancient Gear monsters you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Basically, max this one out. And then next up, we have the 1 copy of Duel. You need to have 1 copy of this to search out from a copy of your Dark Golem, and just OTK your games with this trap card right here. And then lastly, just 1 copy of the Ancient Gear Fusion, which you practically need in some cases or in some scenarios. So pretty good as well. I think you only need the materials from hand or field for this to actually work. Whereas the trap card is field and graveyard, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, from your field or graveyard as materials. There we go. For your extra deck, you just basically need 1 of each for the Ancient Gear Fusion Monsters, so Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Then we have the next 1 card, Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. So this card does piercing. Also, if this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell and trap cards until the end of the damage step, same as the other Fusion Monsters. Then lastly, we have Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. So if this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell and trap cards, same as the other one. If this card was fusion summoned using 2 or more Ancient Gear Golem and or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound, it can attack up to that many times in the battle phase. And for your Link monsters, just have 2 copies of Ballista for this one. So anyways, that is basically our core deck list. Let's showcase off the Master Duel deck list that I'm going to showcase to you guys. Okay, so for the go second strategy that we are going to use for Master Duel, so you have to have a lot of board breakers. We have a Book of Eclipse, you have a copy of Forbidden Droplet, we have Triple Tactics, we have a copy of Heavy Storm. Infinite Impermanence, if your opponent has a ton of effect monsters on the field or you want to trigger one of those effect cards. Also, you have Forbidden Droplet that helps you quite a lot if ever you have a trap card, a monster, and a spell card on hand so that your opponent can interact with your activation for the Droplet, which is one of your closers as well. And you only need a 1 card to do an OTK with this. First of all, Urgent Schedule is a 1 card OTK. Ancient Gear Wyvern is a 1 card OTK. And lastly, Ancient Gear Statue is a 1 card OTK. So 1 card OTK for the statue. For the Urgent Schedule, 1 card OTK. And then at Ancient Gear Advance, 1 card OTK. So a ton of cards that can do a 1 card OTK with just this. And all you need to do is just use Droplet, the Eclipse, the Imperm, the Triple Tactics, and you're sorted out for the game. You can run with 2 copies of Ballista here, and we can go for Genius. A good addition to this map build as well. What else? Sprite Elf, one of the best cards for this deck, basically. And then IP Masquerena. Why this card is one of the best is because if you Urgent Schedule this, your monsters on the field are basically, or they can't use their effects. If you link them off into Sprite Elf and then summon the level 2 basically, then you can activate the effect of the statue, and plus it is protected by any targeted effects with Sprite Elf. Not to mention, if ever you have the Fortress on the field, it's basically sorted out for you. So nevertheless, Sprite Elf is one of your best cards as well. This paired with Ancient Gear is very crazy. That's our Master Duel deck list. Let's move on to our combos. Okay guys, so here we are with our first combo. So this is the OTK card that you basically need in most of your games. So let's start. We go for Urgent Schedule. There we go. Summon a copy of our Dark Golem and a copy of Statue. Now take note, these cards are negated, but nevertheless, we have here Sprite Elf. So Sprite Elf, link off. We go for a summon of the statue back to the field, and it is not anymore negated. So we use the effect of Statue. Spell summon the second copy of our Dark Golem to the field, and with that, gains us 2 cards. First of which, we gain access to our copy for Commander, and then the second one would be a copy of Ancient Gear Duel. The reason for this is we can banish the Commander from the graveyard and activate the trap card directly from our hand to the field. There we go. And use the trap card at this point to fuse our monsters from our field and the graveyard to summon a copy of Julius Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. Now this card can attack 3 times because of the trap card's effect. So you have 4/4. It's more than lethal, to be honest. So if your opponent has 2 or less cards on the field or monsters on the field, you can basically do an OTK with this. And if ever your opponent doesn't summon on the first turn, you can summon this, which is Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. Summon to the field, attack 3 times, you win the game. That is basically your combo with the Urgent Calling, let's move on with the Wyvern. Okay, so for the Wyvern OTK, it's easy enough. Like I said earlier, this searches out the advance. So yeah, look at this. So we go for Wyvern first, get a copy of advance. Advance will be activated, getting a copy of our Catapult. And then now, since we can't use the effect of Catapult here if we can't remove the monster in the field. So what we'll do is tribute the monster, draw one card, which is another draw power at its own right. So it's pretty cool. So tribute that. That way we don't have any monsters. Oh, look at that. We have a statue from our draw, but we won't be using this. Basically, we use the effect of Catapult here. Tribute the card. Spell summon our own Catapult from the deck. We go for a copy of Statue. Summon to the field a copy of Dark Golem. Dark Golem searches out the same cards as before. Commander and a copy of Gear Duel. So with this, banish the commander, use the Gear Duel, and then go for an OTK. So there you go. Easy as that. And it's still the same as we're going with advance though, and if you're going with a statue, same as always. So that's basically your OTK combos going second, or the simple or standard version for the Ancient Gear Golem OTK. Let's move on with some other minor games against an AI. So here we are against an AI. So he has established a board, he has some trap cards. We have the advance, we have a copy of Eclipse, so it's not half bad. So what we can do here first is go for a copy of Eclipse. So flip that face down, go for advance, get a copy of Fortress. Like I said earlier, Fortress helps a lot in this. Your opponent can't interact with your Ancient Gear monster's activation. Also, they can't be targeted for effects. So it's basically like Sprite Elf in a sense. So there we go. Activate the Fortress, and then use the effect of Urgent Calling. Urgent Calling. And then we go for Sprite Elf. And this is the one part here. Sprite Elf got negated. We still have the advance. So tribute one monster, draw one card, and luckily we draw into a copy of Statue. So Statue's effect, if you control no monsters, you can spell summon this card to the field. So with this, tribute the Statue, spell summon the Dark Golem, and since we are uninterrupted because of the Fortress, we can just proceed with our combo until the battle phase. So with this Fortress, gain access to our commander and Gear Duel. Banish that, use the effect of Gear Duel, and go for an OTK. So, like I said, it does piercing as well. So there you go. And that's how you win the game, with just these cards alone. Now, there is another game that I would like to showcase to you guys. So, let's check that one out. Okay guys, so here we are with another game. So it's basically an AI still. But nevertheless, it is still promising. Yeah, he has 3 back rows with 1 monster in the field. So we have here 1 Urgent Schedule, Urgent Schedule, plus the Fortress, a copy of our Tanker, and a copy of our Gearbox. Now, typically, in some cases, you will brick into this. But yeah, it happens it happens rarely. So let's combo it off. Go for a copy of Fortress first. Oh, we got destroyed. Doesn't really matter. We go for Urgent Calling. Or Urgent Schedule. I keep on saying calling. There you go. And you go for Sprite Elf next. And that is one of the reasons why Sprite Elf is very much important with this archetype. So there you go. Use the effect of Dark Golem. The AI is going to use the effect of Rage. So send 1 Salamangreat Great Monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard to target 1 card in the field. Typically, this is going to be protected because of Sprite Elf. So all you need to do is just pop this one, and we can still get a copy of our commander plus the Ancient Gear Duel. And do this, normal summon the copy of Tanker since we haven't normal summoned yet. Normal summon from our graveyard or from our hand. So we summon our Gearbox from our hand, tribute it, and gain 600 attack for all my monsters. So with this, we can go for an OTK, and it is more than lethal. There we go. So that is the power of Ancient Gear. I will search for another variant for this going first. Regardless, that is a go second Ancient Gear Golem deck. I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep safe, good luck. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Goodbye, boys and girls.